Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we travel north to visit with #1 New York Times bestselling author Jan Karon. We'll discuss her life growing up in a small western North Carolina town, which she immortalized as Mitford in her beloved novels. Jan, thank you so much for joining us.
Wiley, thanks for being here.
And thank you for welcoming us into this beautiful home. When I came in the door, I told you, this is exactly the home that I thought Jan Karon would live in. It is so beautiful. So
I love my home. Very domesticated. I love working at home. That's the best thing in the world, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. The fact that we don't have to go to an office. So speaking of home, to start us off, you are a writer who is so associated with a place, and you have fictionalized a place that is very near and dear to you, Hudson, North Carolina. Can you tell us a little bit about growing up in Hudson and the surrounding area there in western North Carolina?
Well, first, I'd like to make it really clear that Mitford is not based on Hudson.
Oh, okay.
No, Mitford is a mashup of several places I've lived. Lenore. I grew up, I had my early childhood in Lenore, which is a neighboring town to Hudson. Then I lived in a small village in Virginia, and Blowing Rock, I lived there for 10 years. So put all that into a mash, it's just like how you do grapes. You put all the different grapes into one big thing, and then you jump in barefoot and start mashing the grapes together. So that's how Mitford came about. Really, it's a universal small town. So people from all over. I just heard from one of our Australian fans this morning, and she's a huge Mitford fan because it's so like where she lives.
Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Well, what was it like for you growing up in all these different places? Like, what kind of things were you bringing with you as a young reader, maybe secretly aspiring to be a writer? Like, what was life like?
I had my ears open every minute. I was born curious.
Yeah.
Hungry and curious. Hungry in more ways than one, actually. But everything interested me as a child. Men wore hats back then, the fedora.
Yes.
I just love a fedora hat on a man. And they would tip it. They stopped taking it completely off when I was a kid. They would just tip it. And women dressed up much more often. You always dressed up to go to town, any town, even a little town.
Sure.
What was it like? Well, it was during the Second World War that I entered school at Hudson. And I remember the Victory Garden. I remember saving bacon grease of all things. How that would help the war effort, I don't know. We saved scrap metal, and we had there was very little input into that culture. I lived in the country, and it was a little country school, actually, at the time. We were all farming or barbering or something very close to that village. But we did have a movie theater, two movie theaters in Lenore. So that's where I saw Gone with the Wind, and that was life-changing.
Sure.
Pat Conroy said he had 2 books in his home, in his parents' home. It was the Bible and Gone with the Wind. And I would say, well, I mean, what else do you need, really?
Sure.
The Bible is like 60 books, or 65. And then Gone with the Wind, holy smoke. It was a busy town because furniture was still being manufactured then, and that's how everybody put bread on the table, was furniture. So it was a busy town. We got to go to the movies, and we went to church in town, which means we could always have a bow in our hair. That was really special. And it was a sweeter kind of time.
Sure. Yeah. Can you remember or share with us those early, I believe you mentioned it to me when we spoke a while back, any teachers that really kindled in you a desire to express yourself, or a sense of creativity, or a sense of the possibility of a creative life?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I was registered in first grade as Janice Meredith Wilson at the age of 5. And my first grade teacher was Nan Downs. And Wiley, I just adored her. Mm-hmm. She just loved us little runny-nosed, skinny kids, country kids. I mean, some of us in overalls, some of us in flour sack dresses, and just glad to be there.
Sure.
Nan Downs saw something in me that had not been seen, I think, by my family. I was drawing Dick and Jane, but not Spot, because Spot was too hard to draw. And she came down the row and looked over my left shoulder and said, "Well, Janice Wilson, that's wonderful. May I take that up the hall and show it to the other teachers?" That's the first time I felt, I think, the power of having been seen, mm-hmm. and something that I loved to do, something that was inside me that I brought out with a number 2 pencil. She saw it and appreciated it, and then she asked my permission, my permission, to show it to the other teachers. So that was a hallmark.
Mm-hmm, sure. Yeah.
For me. And I sort of took it and ran with it, but being very shy and very anxious, it was hard to take anything and run with it.
Sure.
You had to maybe just put that inside and carry it with you, though. That's what I did. I think I carried that with me. So I knew at the age of 10 that I wanted to write a novel because I loved reading so much. If I hadn't been a reader, I'm not sure that I would have been attracted. I don't know how we're wired. So I wrote my first novel with a number 2 pencil. I always give the number 2 pencil credit because it's such a great pencil. I mean, that lead really makes a mark.
It does. It does. Go for days.
So, in any case, I think my book had 14 pages. My little sister found it, and I had hidden it, and came running into my grandmother, and she said, "Mama, Mama, Janice wrote a book, and it's got damn in it." My grandmother said, "Go out there and get me a little switch."
Oh, no.
"And make it a stinging switch." Now, you know switches.
Sure. Yeah,
You're a Southern boy. You don't want a stinging switch.
Yeah.
You'd rather have a 2x4, really. So she gave me a whipping, and that's one of the reasons I don't use any cussing in my books. I just think, okay, all right, she's right. I just let other people do the cussing in their books. However, this will shock some people, and I'll get letters, believe it or not. You know about getting letters, don't you? So I've never used what we call a cuss word until my 15th novel coming out in October, My Beloved. I just thought, I'm going to put damn in this book.
Give me a switch. Well, I want to ask you, you're growing up in this time, World War II, your grandmother's taking the switch to you for writing damn. For every reason in the world, you should not have been able to do the many things you did. What was it in you that pushed beyond Hudson, that pushed beyond the restraints of maybe your age or gender or social class, that just kept going? What was it in you that just pushed?
That's a beautiful, beautiful question. I've never been asked before. There was a good bit of anger in me. My parents kind of dropped out of the picture, and my grandparents raised me until the age of 12 when I went to live with my mother in Charlotte and left that very sheltered culture. What was it, though, that drove me? I knew there was more than what I was getting. I didn't know how to put that into words. I had no idea what it might be. There was a while there in the 40s when the movie magazines were rampant.
Yes.
Everybody had movie magazines. We did Tony Home Perms. We wanted to smoke cigarettes. We wanted to drink. We wanted all that the movies were giving us. So I think I didn't. So we read movie magazines, and I put Clark Gable pictures up on my bedroom wall. This little country girl, this kid, Clark Gable with a mustache already.
And his slick back hair. It's so funny. I watched Gone with the Wind recently, and of course Vivian Leigh is very beautiful, and she kind of anchors the film. But I was watching it with my wife because I'm actually going to teach the film this fall. I'm teaching a Southern Lit class. But the minute Clark Gable comes on the screen, your eye says that's somebody. The way he carried himself, the way the camera embraced him, it was very powerful when he first appears on the screen in that film.
I like what you said. That's somebody.
Yeah, you just felt it, the way he carried himself.
I think I wanted to be somebody. I don't mean somebody in a snippy, nose upturned, better than you kind of way. I just wanted to be somebody. I wanted to find out, who am I? Why am I this little country kid with only one movie theater and, very limited? That was a dime. You didn't get a dime every day. This was on the heels of the Great Depression and the war.
In the mountains, especially.
Yes. I think reading did it to me. My grandfather once snatched a book out of my hand and said, "Give me that book. Books will rot your mind." Well, I just wanted my mind rotted, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I just wanted what was in there, those other worlds that were out there, and how could I get into them beyond reading.
We will be right back with Jan Karon.
Elon University is proud to support the Our State Book Club. In the same way great authors bring North Carolina stories to life, Elon is committed to fostering knowledge, creativity, and lifelong learning across our state. Discover how Elon University shapes thoughtful leaders at www.elon.edu.
We are back with Jan Karon. So Jan, before you devoted your life to writing, you had a really successful career in advertising. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into advertising and maybe even what skills or lessons you carried from advertising into your work as a writer?
Another great question. It is so cool to be interviewed by an author. You get really good, meaty questions from other writers. What brought me into advertising? I was 18 years old. I needed a job. I was a single mom, and I went to work at an agency in Charlotte, North Carolina. At the time, there were very few ad agencies. I mean, it was a rare species. And this was full service. You just did everything. You wrote the copy, you went in the back room with a camera, and you shot the TV commercial.
Oh, wow.
For Mayola milk and, Niece's liver mush and that sort of thing. I would write the copy and put on my bathing suit and go do a Mayola milk commercial, if you can believe. I mean, why a bathing suit and a milk commercial? I don't know. We got away with murder, I'll say that. So I was in advertising for many years, and the highlight of my career was doing the North Carolina tourism campaign, which won the Kelly Award, which is a very unique cash award in advertising given by the Magazine Association of America. And why did we win that? It's because we treated North Carolina, we wanted people to know about us. We didn't Forget the beaches, forget the high-rise hotels that everybody else was bragging about. We've got all that, but we have beautiful quilts that you can't find anywhere else. We have a flatbed ferry that you can ride for free on a certain river somewhere. We have music that came over from Ireland and England, and people just loved that campaign. They just ate it with a spoon. And the tourism board reported that tourism had escalated 33% due to that campaign.
Wow.
I don't know how they figure that out, but that's 33%. We took it. That's great. So there were some wonderful times in advertising, and advertising all along was teaching me how to write fiction. Now, you know, that's not a joke like you think, well, advertising is fiction, but not really. Mm-hmm. I tried to be honest, open. We all did. That was the only way to make a great ad, was just to be real with people, to be authentic. But it taught me to use white space, to give the reader a breath, just like in music, there are stops, and you give that to the reader too. It just, I don't know. I always felt very like I was communicating with that reader out there in Readerland, who would pick up that magazine and go to that spread and read about our quilts, for example, and all of our folk toys and other crafts. Who was that person? How could I really get their interest? And so that's what I do when I write a novel. I'm writing straight to you.
Well, I was going to ask you, you know, it was interesting. You said a lot of the advertising, you know, we had the big buildings, we had the beaches, but a lot of places have big beaches and big buildings. But what does North Carolina have that is particular? And I'm thinking about your Mitford novels and how you make the place really particular. You know, you're showcasing the things about it that happen there. Mm-hmm. The folkways, the manner of speech, the way people dress, the way they celebrate ritual or holidays. Is that something you realize? You know, find those details and bring them to the top.
You said earlier that you were trying to preserve the contemporary literary history of North Carolina. Mm. I'm trying to preserve the dialect that I grew up hearing. It was so beautiful to me. I could listen to those people talk all day. Yeah. And my favorite characters have that dialect. So I'm preserving it. Yeah. It's like keeping the family silver polished and ready to go.
Yeah.
I want to keep that dialect and that whole cultural personality alive because it's still alive.
Sure. Yeah.
It's not like I'm looking back into some haunted past. Those people are still out there. Mm-hmm. And when I hear somebody say haint, which is now about once every decade, I just light up. Sure. Haint, Old English, it's still out there somewhere. So speaking of advertising and how it helped me in fiction, I wanted to tell our listeners about all the people I know who went from writing advertising to writing fiction. Dorothy Sayers, that's the Lord Peter Wimsey novels, Anne Rivers Siddons, Peter Mayle, who wrote A Year in Provence. Elmore Leonard was a copywriter for Chevrolet. Salman Rushdie, James Patterson, Gabriel Garcia Marquez worked at J. Walter Thompson, Daniel Steele, of all people, and maybe one more. Okay, Dr. Seuss. He wrote the fly spray slogan that back in the day everybody loved. It was, and only a few people will recognize this. Quick, Henry, get the flit. Dr. Seuss went on to better things.
He did, yes.
But in any case, advertising has furnished fiction with some wonderful writers.
And of course, you know, before we started rolling the camera, we were talking about our beloved friend Judy Goldman, who you knew from the advertising community in Charlotte, who's a wonderful memoir. So we owe a lot to the world of advertising here in North Carolina, especially. So Jan, some writers, myself included, toil in obscurity for years. And you wanted to make sure that was not going to be your fate.
Yeah, I didn't need that.
So after your first book came out,
Right.
you hustled.
I hustled.
Can you tell us a little bit about that for the listeners out there who might be thinking that when you publish a book, the world opens up and money falls out of the sky and publishers come running for you and the movie deals come in? Tell us a little bit about your early experience with publishing and all the things you did to separate yourself from the pack.
Well, let me start with a word of advice. If you're shopping a book around, be sure, don't even talk to anybody who can't distribute it. That's what happened to me. I sold my first book, and the first 3 books actually, to a small press who simply couldn't distribute it. Mm-hmm. And also they didn't know how to market it. I mean, I was just left hanging. I think they did a print run of 5,000. And that just had to be distributed all over the country. And, that made people end up with maybe having 1 book on the shelf. By book 2, I was seriously uncomfortable about this because, thank God, in advertising, I was exposed all the time to marketing. I mean, that's what advertising does. It sells something. And I wanted to share my work. I mean, yes, I needed the money. I was as poor as Job's turkey. Remember Job's turkey? Poor. I needed to put bread on the table. So I got in my car, which I think had at least 1 rusted fender, because I had just sort of given up everything when I moved to the mountains of North Carolina out of advertising in order to write fiction. Having never written fiction before, I was a newbie. So I just take my books. They were all in paperback. I didn't get into hardcover until the 4th book. And I just went around to bookstores, and silly me, I didn't know. I just go into Barnes & Noble and just, hi, how are you? I'm Jan Karon. Have you seen my book? Well, I know, don't believe we have that. They'd go to their computer, no. And I'd introduce myself, and I would leave a copy of the book. And on I went, and finally, somehow, it just, and there was a Barnes & Noble somewhere, I can't remember where, who actually read it because I made another stop just to say hello.
Yeah.
Remember me? I mean, you just have to get out there. If somebody is not getting out there for you, then get out there and no complaints. So little by little, it happened. Do you remember Quail Ridge Books?
Oh, sure,
in Raleigh?
Nancy Olson.
Nancy Olson, bless her heart, now deceased. She loved authors.
Yes, she did.
She cared about us. She petted. We were her pets. Mm-hmm. She said, Jan, you need an agent. And I thought, boy, do I ever need an agent. I mean, I was doing all that myself. I was writing those contracts. I didn't know what I was doing. I got $7,500 for the first book.
Yeah.
It helped. So she put me in touch with a New York agent who, in fact, her agency was representing Stephen King at the time. So this is a big New York City agency. What could she possibly, it was a woman, Liz Dorensoff, what could she possibly see a value in a book about a bald-headed priest in a little town? And I mean, she loved it. Mm-hmm. She loved it. She was actually very interested, Liz was, in Southern writers.
Yeah.
So she took my work. It was already now 2 novels out and 1 in progress. Took this to Penguin. And there was a young assistant editor, Carolyn Carlson, who came from a Lutheran family. Her father, a Lutheran minister, two sisters, Lutheran ministers. She got it.
Yeah.
She said, "This is my childhood. This is me. This is us. This is where I've been." And she just started promoting my book in
the house. Yeah.
And people got behind it, and they liked it, and they said, there's nothing else like this out there. And I'll tell you a quick story about a darling man who's now deceased, Everett Baranow. He was a salesman. He would take the books on the road. I don't know what they do now. Maybe it's all by computer. But he got in an old car and took the books on the road and took his dog with him.
Oh.
And I just said, I want to just get down and dirty with Everett. I want to go on the road with him. I want to meet the customers. I want to look them in the eye. I want to see what's going on out there. And so the dog had been all over the car, and I wore black because it was, the practical thing to wear when you're on tour. And we went to all these places. The first thing he would say, "Well, this is Jan Karon," and they say, "Yeah, but where's your dog?" He'd go out and bring the dog in. I would be covered with dog hair.
That's so funny.
But that was the way to do it. Just get down in the trenches, get to know
Go out
who's
with the book
out
reps.
there.
Yeah.
And he would say, typically the little Southern independents would take 2 or 3 copies of something, or 4 maybe, and he'd say, "I'm going to send you a case. I'm sending you a case of these Mitford books. If you don't like them, send them back." We never got any returns in the early days. I'm sure we do now, but in the early days, it was like there was nothing else like it.
Yeah.
The independents said, "I can sell this to anybody." If somebody comes in and say, "I'd like something for my Aunt Mary or my Uncle John or my cousin," or you don't know these people, you don't know their reading taste, you just give them a Mitford book. And a lot of them actually, again, in the early days, would do it with a money-back guarantee. You don't like it, bring it back.
Yeah.
So those early days always seem golden, don't they, Wiley?
Sure, yeah.
Even when they're
and the
hard.
indie stores were the lifeblood for my first couple of books. And those book reps on the road, giving the galleys to the booksellers, getting in the front of the readers, that was everything. So to close us out, I always ask our writers that we're in conversation with some opinion questions. And I want to ask your opinion or just your desire when you're writing a book and you're thinking about all these places you've lived and you're picking and choosing what you're going to put into a novel and what you're going to keep out. What are a handful of things, maybe 3 things about your childhood growing up in Western North Carolina especially, that you're always trying to make sure you imbue your novels with?
Referencing the early part of our conversation, the dialect of the mountains in the foothills, because that dialect came down the mountain when the cotton mills opened, and the job opportunities started happening in the foothills. Then the mountain culture started coming down the mountain, bleeding into the foothills.
I'm from Gastonia, and that's what happened in Gastonia, and the mills.
Yes, so we got a lot of that mountain culture, and it just touched my heart. So I make sure that I preserve that culture, which still exists. I'm not writing about the past. What else? Food, big. I'm very food obsessed. And I'm always putting something on the table in my work, and people say, "I can gain weight just from reading."
Well, you had French pastries waiting on us when we got here this morning.
I just can't help myself.
Sure, yeah,
Wiley.
that's great. It's wonderful.
So I'm sure that most cultures that food is a central piece of their lives, but I like to think that in the South we are hospitable. I hope we're still hospitable. We certainly used to be. People would get up, they'd be leaving a group, and they say, "Well, y'all come and go home with us." I thought that was the weirdest thing.
I haven't heard that in forever.
Well, isn't that weird that you
I
have to
haven't
go home
heard
with
that
these
in
people?
forever. Yeah. Y'all come home with us.
Wouldn't it be funny if everybody just rose up and went with those
Yeah,
people?
I forgot about that saying. I love that saying.
So anyway, that was a part of our cultural hospitality back in the day. And my grandmother cooked for everybody. Bless her heart. That woman worked like a Trojan. She would put more food on the table because she knew somebody would come on Sunday. Mm-hmm. So I think there's a lot of that in my work. It may not be precisely those things, but it's the spirit of that giving. I think the spirit of giving is very alive in my work.
Yeah, I would agree. Well, Jan, this has been such a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Wiley.
Elon University believes in the power of stories to engage and inspire our community. That's why Elon is proud to sponsor the Our State Book Club, showcasing conversations with writers who reflect the heart of our state. Learn how Elon University is igniting discovery and dialogue in North Carolina at www.elon.edu.
From day one at Elon University, you're empowered. Engaged learning, meaningful mentorship, celebrated individuality. Transform your potential into purpose and become a leader the world needs at Elon University.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit, never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you see, sweeter fruit, never tasted, don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into